Now you and I can get together. Let it start a revolution. Change the world to what it should be. And forget all this confusion.
Hey guys, I have managed, praise God. You're not going to see me in the sun, there. I have managed, praise God, that I was able to fly to the UK and see my grandfather. And it took some effort. First flight was a mess and I couldn't board because I was too sick. Second flight was okay. So 24 hours apart, we had to change it, of course. So anyway, I'm in England and I get to see my grandfather and my nephew, and obviously after the year I've had, that means a lot to me, because there was a point which you were all part of where I thought I might not see them again. I thought I might not see anyone again. So. But it makes me, while I'm here, want to make a video for New Year. It's actually New Year's Eve. I'll hopefully get this uploaded tonight, so it's appropriate. And I want to share two things that do as I say, not as I've done, because I've struggled with this last year more than I ever have in my life, actually. Since I was aware of it, prior to being aware of it, we all toy with it, but since I was aware of this is the most difficult year. And that is counting blessings instead of curses, but also the appropriate way to identify that mind is creating reality. And the two topics are definitely kind of integrated with one another, without any shadow of a doubt. So this year, I have many curses to count if I so wished. I've had a rough year, and I've been going over those curses quite often, even in my videos. And it's not right, and it's purely off the back of a weakened physical state that this happened. But that weakened state will make me strong, because I'm learning so much from it. And whereas before, when I would struggle, I would go for a run to clear my head. But this is not dealing with your issues, this is suppressing with your endorphins. I mean, it made me very effective and productive, and if I were a runner, I'd still be able to be efficient and effective at doing what I do. But to live the rest of my life like that means that when I become an old man, if I can't run, I have a friend in this village who I met yesterday. He's in his 80s and he runs, but he's got arthritis now. And he runs to clear his mind. And now he can't run well, and he can't clear his mind because he didn't learn at a younger age how to do that. Now, I'm forced now to learn how to do that, which is an amazing thing. So, this year I'm counting my blessings instead of my curses. So, the reason I've been counting curses, however, is identifying with the story of my sickness. And the reason I've been identifying with the story of my sickness, I can't get comfortable and the grass is cold and wet. The reason I keep doing that is very important for all of us. So body-mind awareness is so key in anything you do in life, and this has been the massive training session for me about body-mind awareness and how thoughts are creating reality. When I've been sick, I've been in constant pain, and in my prideful ego, is the only way I'm going to label it, I wasn't taking any pain relief. Now, upon the addition of pain relief, my life has changed immeasurably, because I'd gone into a habituated cycle of waking up on a morning, feeling the pain in my body. My mind's awareness will shift, whereas normally my mind's awareness would be on prayer and giving thanks and getting ready for the day and what I'm going to schedule myself to do and getting centered in the present moment. I didn't, and the reason was I would wake up and my mind would move to the pain. And it doesn't take long, once you've created that circuit of moving to the pain, that you then create the thought pattern of the story of being ill. And every morning you're reminded of it by the trigger, which is the physical pain. And a lot of people have this problem with sickness. That's why they get into a downward spiral of being sick, because they wake up, they feel the pain, they remember that they're sick, they go into the story of being sick, they become the victim. And in doing that, you start creating all the negative, wrong balances in your body, the hormones, the bioelectric aspects of yourself. And then on top of that, people will start reaching for something to make them feel better. And someone's talking. They will start reaching for things to make them feel better. So you'll feel unwell. You'll feel sad due to being unwell and identifying with the story of being unwell instead of identifying with the journey of getting well. And when you do that, you reach for something that'll normally endorse some pleasure into your flesh. So you'll reach for drugs or stimulants or distraction like mindless television, etc. And when you move your mind to that place, then you're in trouble because you're creating two negative circuits. You're creating an addictive circuit to deal with the misery of your sickness in some sort of fleshly pleasure. You're then, behind that, creating the negative hormones within yourself, etc., and the negative patterns, which means you won't get motivated to do the things you want to get well, and you're even adding to the oppression of your immune system by doing that. And this is why our thoughts are such a huge part of healing. And this year, due to pain, I kept going over the problems that I was having. I kept recycling the issue and not moving over onto the other track, which was the healing, the path of healing. And purely by using a plant medicine, I've crossed onto that path. I can feel it, I can see it. And the plant medicine, you know, is kratom, a pain reliever. And I need it because I don't function without it. It's not like people using stuff recreationally. I physically can't walk and move due to the pain in my joints, etc. without it, which puts me back in bed. With it, I can move. I still can't move far, but I can move. And that's enough freedom for me to move myself onto the other path. The path of, this is my journey of healing. This is not, John is the victim of being sick anymore. This is, I've got to do my duty to my family, to my friends, to the children that I love in Tanzania that I call family, and to those of you who follow us online as well. I have to do my duty to get well, and I have to do my duty to God because I've labeled myself as someone who's close to God, and thus I, in recovering, can glorify His name somewhat. And on top of all of that, it's important for me to have realized that God might well have made me sick, but that's fine because I'm on His schedule here. You know, you might be late for something and cause your friend to be late for an important appointment, and you spend all day feeling bad about it. But you might have saved that friend's life and not even know that you have because they avoided a car crash due to it. I've seen these strange events in my life. I've witnessed it where something happens and I feel dreadful thinking I've created a negative impact on someone's life. And then a week or 2 weeks down the line, it's revealed that this negative impact was actually illusory because it was on God's time, not my own human understanding. So going into 2020 and the end of this decade, I'm, aside from moving onto the path of healing, also not going to reflect on the negatives of 2019 as at all, to be fair, because even when I reflect on the point of August and September, which was the hardest month of my life, when I was really in a lot of pain with that thing, and every day a seizure, it was traumatic. It was very, very traumatic. However, now, because I've moved from the path of being this sick victim over to this path of I can heal here, because my mind is not identifying with the pain and joining that spectrum of my reality where it follows this journey of I'm sick and it's not fair and blah, 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 blah. Instead, I move looking at that where I say, thank God I made it, which enters gratitude into myself. It's a very obvious thing. But at the same time, I can say that was 4 months of pain and fearing that I might pass. And naturally, I got closer to God due to that. And the strength I've gained from that now, when I look at this as a lesson and not a negative event, is profoundly life-changing. And I really feel like God threw me into a crash course the last 2 years of how to strengthen myself, how to fully endorse the very message that I know is singing in my heart every day, roaring in my heart every day. How do I endorse that message? Well, by living it. And it's no good me telling everyone that there's a faithful, loving God out there if I'm walking around negative because I got sick. Because that lacks faith. Because I either have to have faith that He's going to heal me, and if I do not become fully healed, I have to have faith that there is a reason behind it. Perhaps I was going to go on an ego trip, which is very easy to do when thousands of people are singing your praises. You've got lots of people relying on you, depending on you. Very easy for the story of the good works that you've done, instead of letting your light shine before men that they may see God's good works, you become self-glorifying. Very easy, and I've teetered on that line. And it's at least something I'm conscious of, even if I do it mistakenly. Because the very most difficult thing about succeeding is shutting up about it, especially when you've come from a background of failure. But I must have faith that either the reason I must remain sick for X amount of time is because God had to strengthen me for what's ahead, or that in doing that, He saved me from creating damage to those that I love, which would have in turn damaged myself, by ensuring that I was humbled throughout all of this. Because I am from a background which is not spiritual. I am from a background in this area of the world prior to me spending those years, nearly 3 years, alone, pretty much constantly in nature like this. You see, there's hardly any people around all the time here. Prior to that, I was a fleshly being. I was a sinner. By that I mean I was obsessed with sex. I was obsessed with drug and drink. I was obsessed with street racing in my sports cars. I would lie, cheat and steal to get hold of the things I needed as well, like the drugs to settle my body, etc. To make myself feel comfortable with the life I was living, I needed a ton of marijuana and cocaine on a weekend. I'm from that background. I am not a church boy who grew up without sin, and that's why I have to work hard. And that's why when other Christians often say to me, meditation is the devil, it's like, yeah, because you haven't been into that place. And if you go into that place and you keep behaving that way, people who have been there can't get out because they don't know how to discipline their mind, because they've created circuits in there that make them fleshly that you haven't created because you were in a different environment. You must understand that these things are so important, because I would not have come away from those things if it weren't for coming into nature down here by myself for all those years. You're talking years. And a lot of fasting in among there, and walking and fasting and stuff, just to alter my consciousness, which is the same as training. I used to run on an empty stomach to alter my consciousness, to get into a higher vibratory state. Because as I have heard before, angelic beings love themselves too much to come down into our vibration. They won't come down into human vibrations. They love themselves. So they need us to come up to their vibration. By vibration, I mean the state that you're in. We all know that you can eat a heavy meal and you can eat extremely heavy, uncomfortable food. It sets you down. That's why God tells you in the Bible, when you fast, not if. It's never if, it's when. And most people I've had don't actually fast. They don't do it. They do not obey Christ in that way. But He said when you fast, because when you do fast, you elevate your state of being. You become lighter. If it weren't for all of that adjustment that I had here, I wouldn't have been able to come to do the work I have for God. And at the same time as understanding all of that, I went through an awakening where I realized that what I set my thoughts upon at that time were going to manifest, because I'd manifest negative behaviors by setting negative thoughts. I'd manifest negative experiences with drugs and alcohol and sex with people, and I had done so heavily in Spain, which was terrible, especially on the sexual side. And I now look back on it, I don't feel any pain, I don't feel any badness, I have been forgiven for those things. But I could see back then that at least because I'd set a thought on it, I'd gone there. And thus I knew if I set my thought on my highest good, God would take me there. And when I got to Tanzania, he filled my heart with his desires, and I set my desires, my thoughts on building the structure to help those people that I wanted to help. Now, I'm in this place now, going into 2020, where I've woke up to this a secondary time in a much deeper way. And I think on some level, I had scratched the surface of manifestation. And I feel like this sickness has put me deep into the barrel of it. And I'm now excited to see what I can manifest. Because I know that I can govern my thoughts quite well these days. And I've also learned the worst trick of the flesh, using pain to pull you and identify only with the flesh and not the spirit. And now I can set my thoughts afresh going into 2020 on those things that I want to see for the world. And I'm excited beyond comprehension. And I'm going to spend time in nature to do this, because that's how I did it before. But all of this negative crap that happened to me, that I was perceiving as negative, it's been like a training course. You know, it would be like a cheating spouse leaving you when you don't know that they're cheating and then finding out they were cheating after. It's nothing but benefit. And that's why the journey and the lessons and the learning of faith, for me, never stops. And also, your service to God will never stop, and he will keep strengthening you to your ability. He will keep putting on you to your ability what he needs to. And going into the new year, you should all remember these key things, because they are factual. Number one, thoughts become things, whether it's physical health or manifesting the direction you go. And you know this because everything starts with an intention in your day. You don't brush your teeth without intending. The problem we have is we habituate thoughts. And when you habituate thoughts, you become very weak indeed. But thoughts become things if you leave habituation. Do something brand new every morning for a week, you'll feel uncomfortable, but you will rewire your brain to expect more than the mundane, more than the cycle that you have been caught within inside our society, raising children, etc., which is fine. The other thing is, thoughts don't only manifest externally with intentions, they change the chemistry of your body. And the other thing is that you must keep faith in the darkest of times. It's easy for me while I'm feeling good, running, got a beautiful wife, lots of people who love me everywhere, to sing God's praises. But you try singing them when your body is burning with pain, and you can't. But in time you can, because you realize that it might be a blessing, and you would be a wholeheartedly ungrateful child if it is a blessing and you're standing against it. So trust God as a child trusts you. You don't want your child to worry at school that they're not going to get fed tonight, and whether or not they're going to have to go and try and earn some money to feed the family this week. You don't want that. It's stupid. And God doesn't want it for you too. So release the worry. Remember that your thoughts do become things. Remember that your top goal is to control how you're thinking so your body doesn't go off in the wrong direction. And above all, hold faith into every event. Because even in the darkest hour, you have no idea what is happening. You have no idea what blessing might be behind it. A child may be dying of a sickness, but it may help them to not die of a horrific, painful way when they're older. And thus it's a blessing you can't see. A blessing from a loving mother and father, the Elohim, the Great Spirit, the God of all, the Creator of all creators. So Happy New Year. I hope you take something from my ramblings this New Year's Eve, and thank you for making everything possible at Share Tanzania. I'm going to do a separate video outside of my personal journey about that. So, God bless, guys. We love you all.